Like that. I know. Yeah. I know what I would want to say. Right, isn't she here to make you feel better? There's enough of that out there.
Don't make me try to talk about it.
How long is she going to do?
I think maybe till Friday. But it was.
No, but now you don't have to go all the room.
I'm glad I had a meeting.
Really? Good. I was feeling bad a minute ago. Like, oh no, you should
I like
be home or something.
Oh, your man. Oh, music. Oh, yeah. That's the one that smells like chocolate.
Whoa.
I always have.
I don't know if we're ever going to want to go down.
To see people's faces more. So otherwise, sometimes if you're like this and you're watching this person.
No, I like this.
Definitely. It's a flat information. There you go. Definitely. Someday when that happens.
Well, at least you know for the next month.
They should be.
You made sure they're all on, or should we test it?
They should all be on. I tested them earlier, but
Share.
they should all be able to move a little bit. You and I will have the hardest time because they don't go as far over. But just for the recording.
It's bad.
I know it's like Charlie Brown.
Yep. Okay, I would like to call this regular meeting of the Saugatuck Township Board to order on Wednesday, October 14th at 6 o'clock.
Listen. We can't hear you very well.
Oh, I imagine you can't.
Right, but that math's going on. Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
We'll do the roll call. Aldrich.
Here.
Bickford. Here. Helmrich.
Here.
Marcy.
Here.
Osmond. We have a quorum. Pledge of allegiance. Everybody will stand, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. It looks like we have a presentation from the Tri-Communities Trail Master Plan. If John or Dan would like to step up to the podium.
Yeah, hi. Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate the opportunity to present the Trail Master Plan of Saugatuck and Douglas. We could put number 4 up there. Yeah, the Tri-Community Trail Master Plan is, at its heart, it's a conservation plan. The last major conservation effort was right here you see in the video in the background. This is the Harbor Shore Natural Area. 170 acres of this land that surrounds us on the western part of where Oxbow Lake is was conserved 5-6 years ago. And so what are we doing? We're a little bit more of a pragmatic approach than just trying to conserve everything. Where we can't conserve, we're looking at working with landowners to create easements like wooded easements or trail easements. You know, it started out with, if you could go to number 1, I'm sorry. This is years ago I started making this trail map of the peninsula area. Most of us have walked Bald Head area It's just beautiful. It made me realize in mapping out all the trails here, nobody's ever made a trail map. I started realizing the personal property and private property that was butting up against a lot of these trails and potentially can block some of it. And I started to realize that there's a bigger picture to trails. It shouldn't just be Mount Baldhead. And all of us have seen the other trails that are in the total area here, like at River Bluff and so forth. So what's the Trail Master Plan? The Trail Master Plan is a plan, if you could pull up number 3. Basically, I zoomed out of this peninsula plan, and I said, well, what if we could make trails anywhere? Because there's hundreds of acres all over of undeveloped, wooded natural parcels. There's hundreds of acres. The original 170 acres I showed you was $20 million to conserve. You could buy the rest of the natural area here for $20 million, so that's kind of an interesting tidbit. Because a lot of these natural parcels, like you see behind the gun shop, 35 acres behind the Blue Star Veterans Park, you see another 25 acres. There's just lots of plots. And so if you go to number 2, what I did is I made this. Can I rotate this out a little bit? Sure. I made this map that pointed out all the destination points. I'm sorry, I'm like too focused on them. I marked out all the destination points here, and that's things you're familiar with: the Wade Bayou, Douglas Beach, Oxbow Lake, etc. And I said, well, what if we can conceptually just build relationships with kind of all the landowners in the area, all the conservation groups in the area, the civic leaders like yourself? What if we have a vision for a master trail plan that can connect anywhere, any neighborhood you live, you can walk in a trail from one place to another. So if you go to the number 3, you'll see that I broke it up into 3 phases. It's not really broken up into cities, it's more geographical, so there's the red and the green and the purple. So if you look at the red part of the map, number 1, it doesn't involve, well, it actually does involve township, but the city of Saugatuck owns all that Talmadge Woods and Harbor Shore natural area, but in the township. So what I propose on number 1 is a circle, a loop. Basically from Oval Beach, you can walk all the way around. Land Conservancy is in control of that right now. They've told me that that's a practical idea to build a bridge across the lagoon there on the north side of that Oxbow Lake, giving everybody the opportunity to see the awesome beauty and be able to walk to the cove. People call it the party cove, I guess, if people grew up around here. And so number 1's that, it's making a loop. Number 2 is connecting Douglas to the Mount Baldhead Forest. So I actually started making this trail. I'm working with the last remaining 30 acres of private acreage in that dune land, and I started making a trail. It's not public yet, but it's started, and what I'm doing is I'm leveraging relationships with real estate agents that know the area, and we'll be able to sort of, in the next sale, make a trail happen that connects basically Douglas through to Mount Baldhead Woods by a natural trail. Number 3 there is building a sidewalk that goes, and this doesn't involve township obviously, but building a sidewalk that takes you down Perryman, down Park, and down Perryman, and connecting it to the future trailhead that's going to be where Hayworth is now via David Barker's development over in Douglas. So let's just switch over to the green area. The green area, if we put on number, let's see, film 4. We'll go back to that map though right as soon as it plays. Oh, that we've already seen. So go back to the map, and there we go. So if you look at the green area, this is the heart of our area on this side of 196. And if you look at number 4, one of the most crucial parts of the Trail Master Plan is connecting back behind Eiley via a natural trail through the North Shore development into State Park. It's a beautiful hike. The trails are already there. They just need to be, we need to exert pressure on the Padnos development somehow and make this really happen. And that's 200 acres. There's a lot of focus on what's going on at the harbor and them digging out the channel, but we're kind of losing sight of the fact there's 200 acres there that could be conserved, but they haven't closed the book on that yet. So that's number 4. Number 5, we had this Parks Commission meeting recently, and it was at the Blue Star Memorial Veterans Park. And it's just this little roadside park. It's just the easement of the road is the end of the park. So I've been talking to Joe Malakis. If you look at this white area here, that's Joe Malakis' 25 acres. I said, hey, would you entertain the idea of letting us have 50 feet so we could expand the park, get a few more parking cars there, and actually utilize that park, because it's very kind of underutilized. It's even scary being on the highway. So that's number 5 is the moonshot of number 5 is let's conserve it as a new park. But where we can't come up with say $700,000, $800,000, you know, let's build a trail through there that connects over to my next point, which is number 6. If you play number 6, the video, you can see that our 196 highway is wooded on either side, and it looks beautiful. And I think we kind of take it for granted, but on either side of that highway are several 30-acre plots of land that are up for sale, up for grabs, up for development, and they're able to, with the zoning that we have here, they're able to just clear cut all that if they wanted to, essentially, if they get their permit. So my idea is, I started talking with some of these landowners, and I said, gee, can we have 50 feet along the highway? And I'm working with the ODC and actually to provide tax receipts on that. And can we get a highway to connect River Bluff Park all the way up to the Malakis Future Park, or even just the trails going into the neighborhood would be great. I've already started number 6 trail. It goes from River Bluff and connects up into the Clearbrook Golf Course area. That is, you're allowed to walk there, but you can't walk through. There's a loop, it just turns you back around. But the idea is, I'm working with that landowner, they're going to let us do the easement, and it'll connect point A to point B, it'll connect River Bluff Park to Clearbrook area. Maybe Clearbrook will be a park someday too, who knows? To me, real estate pressure around here, everything's going up. I don't know if I see a golf course being there for the next 10, 20 years. So going to number 7, there's a lot that past people have done already, like R.J. Peterson. You know, he made Peterson's Preserve. There's a lot of water over there. Goshorn Creek is a big idea here where we could have trails going along, and I've talked to some people along Goshorn, like the Malakis property. Goshorn Creek runs right through it, and I'm talking to them about maybe putting an easement through there so connect point A to point B. So moving to the next point, number 8 is the highway loop on the other side. That's the Eastern Highway Loop, and that's the least developed of all these ideas. I haven't talked to the landowners and property owners of that yet, but we could potentially have a loop that goes all the way around. And there's the dog park there that you guys are well aware of. The dog park is just a tiny acre or so that's within this 30-acre area of township property. And right next door, number 10, if you want to play number 5 video, I think it is. This is just a look at the dog park. You see the antenna behind. All that rough land down there that's been dug out many years ago, that's all Saugatuck Township property. My proposal would be to have a trail go through there and connect to the Saugatuck property, which is the old airport. If you guys remember where that is, Saugatuck has 50 acres over there. I'm not proposing changing. They burn stuff there, and it would cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars to have somebody deal with that. So I'm not proposing we go, make the whole thing into a park, but out of everything I'm proposing here, there's 2 parks I propose, turning the eastern portion of that airport property into a park. It's the most beautiful creek. Silver Creek runs right through there. So its headwaters are north of there, and it is just stunning. Virgin forest on either side of the creek. And I only have 2 property owners south of them that connect to 11, which is the Lays Preserve, off 62nd Street off Old Algon, which there's trails through about 50 acres already. So basically, between these 3 different sections, this is a starting point. This is just a concept that we can start now and try to work into the master plan the master plan chapter 8 that we're already under, the Tri-Community Master Plan. It talks about this stuff, but there's no specifics. So let's make it specific. so happens all this work that I've started to do just conceptually, it's plugged into a statewide plan called the Kalamazoo Lower Greenway Plan. And if you want to go to slides 7, 9, and 10, the Kalamazoo Greenway Plan brings me to introduce Dan at the ODC. They're doing the wonderful work of implementing this. They've basically been hired by the state to develop this plan. And though I'm working with Land Conservancy and I'm working with any nature organization that'll talk with me, these guys, we're on the same page, and they care about our community and they care about, you know, what natural resources we have. So I'll give you the mic, Dan.
Sure. So I'll kind of work from the macro down to the micro with kind of what we were looking at here. We met with John and have started talking about some of his ideas late last year. I've just kind of been kicking around how can we find additional trail space, how can we provide additional assets to the community. And as part of our lower greenway plan, Griffin, if you want to pull up the number 10, the broader map. So we have been working for the past couple of years on starting to focus in on how we can create a greenway, a habitat corridor, recreation corridor along the Kalamazoo, Gun, and Rapid Rivers. Townships have been supportive so far of our efforts. Thank you for the endorsement you gave us earlier this year. And we just want to try and figure out how we can start to piece together some of these communities broader, and then within some of these communities, how can we piece together some of the existing green space that's already there, protect what is already high quality, and potentially help to restore some of the areas that are not so high quality. So we love the idea of kind of all of these trails and all of these green patches, and it's one of these great features that the Saugatuck area has. You pull through here, and it does feel green. It does feel very different than, say, up in Holland or over by Grand Rapids. And we kind of want to focus on areas where we can potentially provide assets to the community through greenway planning, being respectful, of course, to township finances, management, and all that sort of thing. We recognize that both the township of Saugatuck as well as the two cities don't necessarily have a ton of resources necessarily to devote to it. So we wanted to come in as kind of a nonprofit partner to try and help do some of the management, potentially fundraise where need be to help kind of implement and make some of these ideas happen. So what we want to focus on largely is just acquiring some of these key trail easements that John's been working with the landowners on. As a nonprofit, we already hold a great deal of trail easements up in the Holland area along the Macatawa River Greenway. And so as a nonprofit, we can hold that. We can provide some sort of tax benefit to the property owner if they're interested. If someone is interested in outright selling to us for the purposes of planning, we can also potentially fundraise or seek additional grant funding to help make some of that stuff possible. So I'd say we're excited that John has a couple very strong leads already. We have done a little bit of fundraising through a GoFundMe page to get a little bit of funds in the pot just so we have some money for survey work and legal work that we need to do to be able to hold some of these assets. And going forward in the future, some of these may not be very immediate, like when we get an easement, we can put a trail in right away. John found a couple of those sites already, and they may exist and make sense, but we want to be very mindful that potentially some of these we could hold on to for some period of time until it makes sense that we have the assets as a community and as our organization can partner with you guys or partner with the Land Conservancy or however some of these details get fleshed out. We want to be sure that these assets can be sustainable, they can be taken care of, and they can be real assets for the community going forward. So,
if you want to look at some more elaborated information, I have a YouTube presentation that's 30 minutes. There's a flyer at the door there. Grab it, and you can look up the YouTube, and you can also look up the Facebook page and find more information on the GoFundMe page, the map, etc.
Okay, thank you very much, Don and Dan and John.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the time.
Thank you. Okay, now it is time for public comment. If anybody would like to make public comment, we ask you to hold your time to 3 minutes, but please raise your hand and step forward, talk at the podium. Anybody?
I'll do the second one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, hearing none, then we'll look at the agenda. Is there any changes or amendments to the agenda?
I do have one. Yeah, I will. I'd like to pull, I think, here we go. 11A under unfinished business, because I understand next week there will be work done on the, Open Meetings Act. So we need to wait till we hear the results of that before we move forward.
Okay, we'll remove number 11A, remote voting policy from the agenda.
Right.
Okay. Any other changes? No other changes, then we'll take a motion.
I'll move to accept tonight's agenda as presented, with the exception of removing item 11A.
I will second that.
Any further discussion? We're gonna do something we haven't done in a while. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So the next item on our agenda is review of the invoices. Everybody's had a chance to look that over?
Yes?
Yes.
Any questions for Griffin? Then I'll take a motion.
I move to approve all bills and payroll in the amount of $86,999.86 as presented.
Support? Support by Marcy. Another rare time. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. And we can move on to the treasurer's report. John?
Thank you. All right. At the end of September, which we're reporting on tonight, our general fund bank balance remained at $2.7 million, which was flat to where it ended the month of August. Revenue for the first quarter, we just finished the first quarter already, if you can believe it. Revenue is about 15% below budget. Just a reminder, though, our winter taxes that'll come out in December are the ones that include most of the payments to the township for various funds. The summer ones only include our few light districts and the administrative fee. Expenses, though, are running 13% below budget as well, or almost the same. So it's a good picture, and we had no departmental overages to comment on tonight. Our one investment product, the CD with what is now TCF Bank, was at $763,000 at the end of September, up slightly from August. Summer tax deadline passed on September 14th, and as of when I did this report to the end of the month, we were at 89% of billed parcel payments received. We've gone over 90% since that, which is very good news and especially encouraging during the challenging times where everyone's facing. I will do a second notice in November. It's less than 300 parcels that haven't paid, and last year I did a second notice, and it prompted a lot of payment that didn't get carried over into the next year. On the tax disbursement front, we number 5 is in your packet. We pre-approved that last meeting because of the timing difference. Tonight, I'd like to submit to you the disbursement number 6, which totals $1.6 million, and number 7, which has just been made, so this is kind of retroactively, but the deadline came this week, and that's probably the biggest one we'll have in the year. It's just over $2 million to our disbursement. So, I would like to make a motion to approve tax disbursement on the summer taxes payments, number 6 and 7, which you have the detail in front of you.
I'll support.
Support by Marcy. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
It's too late to say any questions, but you could still ask your head
I
specific
could have
questions.
done that.
Okay,
Still getting used to this.
I know. All right. So, related, I want to give you an update as we've been doing, and this is the work that Clerk Bigford and I have been, I don't know, how long has it been now, 4 or 5 months? We've been reviewing the financial investments the township have, which, to remind everyone, is simply that one certificate of deposit at one bank. And we have a lot of money in there, well over the amount that's insured by the FDIC. So we've been talking to our neighbors in Saugatuck City and Douglas City and the MTA and our auditor and other, just gathering information. We kind of presented our idea for a plan last month. Tonight, I'm happy to report we've taken our first step, active step. This week, on Monday, we reactivated our accounts with Michigan Class, which is the pool account that vast majority of Michigan townships and municipalities participate in. We moved $1 million from our checking account, which is now in this pool. And like I said, that's step one. Just a reminder, the township, if you take all of our financial assets, 77% are in our simple checking account, or at least they were till Monday. By comparison, the city of Douglas, who we most recently met with, 12% of their assets are in a bank account. So there's a big discrepancy there, and we've taken a step to rectify that. We've established relationships with 2 municipal financial advisors, D.A. Davidson in Chicago and MBS, for potential future investing in municipal bonds, treasuries, and other CDs. In a nutshell, after this first step this week, our goal now is to start doing more, probably not till the beginning of calendar year 2021, and we're thinking of aiming to have 30% in class, which is, I might want to reiterate, unlike regular CDs, class is totally liquid. You can access the money overnight and without penalty. CDs and bonds through a municipal advisor, we're aiming to perhaps be at 20%. Direct CDs, which would be like if we keep our TCF bank and maybe do something else with a local bank, 30% max, and we would not fund any of these beyond $250,000, which is the insured amount. And our goal is to keep our cash in the bank and the general fund checking account at 20%, which is down from where it is now at 77%. All of this is within the guidelines. We compared what the city of Douglas is doing percentage-wise, Saugatuck, and we had input from a consultant to the Michigan Township Association. And then we will start in January pursuing what we feel is a strong investment philosophy called a ladder of investment strategy. And this is balancing, obviously, longer-term treasuries and CDs have a higher interest rate, but long-term can mean 30 years or even 5 years. And we got to balance that with keeping some of them in lower interest short-term in case of an emergency where we would need access to those funds. So, thank you for everything you've done working with me on this. It's been an education, and I'm really excited that we've taken a big first step.
This is a huge step. Thank you, John and Abby, for undertaking this, and it's really important.
It is.
We were really not wisely invested, and this is something we talked about initially, and it's so happy that it's
exciting
finally
that we made the
happening.
first step and moved that money over to class,
Right.
and then before we know it, our CD is gonna come due in December,
Yeah.
which is $763,000
Month after
that
next,
we need that we can put to work in some things that are a little bit more, have a little bit of a higher yield, so.
Thank you so much.
No, and thanks to the board for all your support with this.
And to Griff.
Yeah. Of course, that goes without saying.
Thank you, John. Has everybody had a chance to look over the minutes? Our next agenda item. Did anybody have any comments or questions about the minutes?
Looks good to me.
Would somebody like to make a motion?
I move to approve the minutes of September September 9, 2020, regular meeting as presented.
I'll support that.
Motion by Aldrich, supported by Helmrich. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is correspondence. Mr. Graham, did we get any correspondence?
Nope, not at this point.
No correspondence.
Whoa.
Wow.
That post office, right?
Interurban appointments. I think we have in our packet the, application and the letter from the interurban. I see Lori is here. Do you want to come up and just say that you're
It's been an honor, and I would like to do it again. It just sounds, I just like serving on interurban. It gives me a great honor to do that, so I appreciate you would, today.
okay. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion?
Oh, I'd just like to point out, we did get this nice letter from Phyllis, the executive director, in your support. We also had verbal support in the office from our other township board representative on the interurban board. So your work is well appreciated and recognized.
Yes,
Thank you,
Well
Lori.
said.
I'd like to move to appoint Lori Barinski to the Interurban Transit Authority Board as a Saugatuck Township representative for a term of 4 years, October 1st of 2020 through September 30th of 2024.
There's support.
I'll support.
Motion by Marcy, support by Bigford. Any discussion?
Thank you for serving, Lori. I know it's probably not glamorous, and after you've worked all day, maybe you don't want to go to a meeting at night, but so thank you for
No,
serving your
I
community.
really enjoy it.
Oh,
Thank
good.
you for bringing me again. Thank you for,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
You know.
Not yet.
Can we clap?
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
All those in favor?
Oh,
I just said we didn't vote. Aye.
Motion
Wait till
carries.
she reads the room.
New business, the ambulance service special assessment. Griffin, would you like to say a few words about that?
Sure, I
Just
would,
real brief.
yep, I would be happy to. I'd also like to point out and thank, the Township's Emergency Services Committee Representative, Tony Shippa, for being here. I know he's come out of his way to be available for questions if there are any related to, this topic. In a really brief summary, the township funds ambulance service, for the southern half of the township with a special assessment district. Annually, the township, it's a good practice for the township board to adopt the levying assessment and special assessment role for that special assessment district, and that's what has been brought before you all. As a reminder, due to state statute and the cost of this service increasing by more than 10% from last year, a public hearing does need to be held tonight. It was appropriately noticed. Following the public hearing, the township board has the right to revise the proposed special assessment role even after closing that public hearing, and if at that point you all are comfortable moving forward, I would recommend approving the adoption of the resolution in your packet. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Graham? Okay, then we'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody here that would like to speak about this special assessment district? I'm not seeing anybody jumping out of their chair, so I will go ahead and close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I move to approve the adoption of resolution 2020-11, a resolution to confirm the township's ambulance special assessment role in levying assessment for 2020 as presented.
Thank you. Is there support?
I'll support.
Support by Marcy. Is there any discussion? everybody had a chance to look at the roll?
Yes.
Yes, and, I mean, when you look at how much an average household is paying, I think it's a really reasonable, low price to have quality, timely ambulance service that just SHPA has worked so hard to secure. So, I think this has been a long time coming, I'm really happy about this.
You know, and I just want to add, I mean, we've done this before, but it bears repeating. I want to thank our representative on the ESC, Mr. SHPA, and Mr. Graham, who came in as a new manager here. We had already voted, I think, to reapply the assessment, and then it was several grueling months of negotiations to bring in the new vendor to replace, AMR, we replaced with Light from Grand Rapids. And it took a long time, and it went up significantly, which we were not thrilled about, but we've kept the service and the safety of our citizens first. So thank you both, Mr. Graham and Mr. SHPA.
Thank you.
Thank you. And this is a resolution, so we will be doing a roll call vote. Bickford?
Yes?
Helmrich?
Yes.
Marcy?
Yes.
Osmond? Yes. Aldrich?
Yes.
Motion carries. Buoy maintenance agreement is our next item. Mr. Graham, would you just say a few words about what this is about?
Absolutely. If the board will remember back to this spring and early summer, one of the items you all asked staff to look at was potential options related to reducing the financial burden of this service on the township moving forward. One of the options we identified was the potential of working with some volunteers in the area to help us with the management of the no-wake buoys in the Kalamazoo River. Over the past several months, staff has worked with the township's legal counsel, and he's identified volunteers to negotiate an agreement that would not only protect the township's property, but also protect the township from the potential liability, as well as looking out for those volunteers who are going out of their way to help the township with this service. So that is what you all have before you, and I don't see any of them in the audience, but I would just like to acknowledge that this has been a partnership. This doesn't happen without the cooperation of those residents, and as you all are very familiar, the township's very fortunate to have residents willing to volunteer their time to help the township. So I think this is a relatively low-risk opportunity for us in terms of trying something new. I will also tell you, and as I'm sure you all saw by looking at the agreement, the township can decide to switch back to contractors or end the agreement at any time. So my recommendation would be it's worth trying, and we can evaluate it moving forward and continue to go from there. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I did read it this morning, but can you just remind me or us, what's the term of the agreement?
The term is until we decide to end it.
So it's, okay.
Yeah, yep, it's until we decide to end it or until the volunteers decide they no longer want to help us with that service anymore.
There's 4 of them, right?
There's three. Yeah, it's primarily listed, Mr. Jay Frederickson, Mr. Brent Sheridan, and Mr. John Riley.
Did they place them this year, person, or is this from now?
They did not.
They did not,
No.
okay.
So, I was
So they really don't
wasn't
know what they're,
comfortable until we got
if
the
they
agreement.
like it or not, so, yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
And we are gonna try to have the buoys out by the end of the month, so I'd even be comfortable saying we're gonna have a pretty good, feel if this is something we're gonna
so they're gonna
continue on
remove them?
longer term. If the board decides to
Yes,
enter the agreement.
okay, well, good, I think that's a good job.
And in terms of volunteers, is there a mechanism if 1 or 2 of them like move or don't want to do it anymore to replace them, or do we just deal with it as that happens?
Yes, the agreement outlines a number of those things if a majority of them decide they don't want to provide that service anymore. But the other piece is once we have a base agreement like this in place, it's much easier to amend or to include other people or such moving forward. I think one of the challenges for the township is, my understanding is we didn't have these liability release types agreements or even just simple waivers when working working with volunteers and taking the first step to start to produce something like this. It's much easier to amend for other types of situations where we may want to work with volunteers in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to the residents for volunteering. It's really,
It's actually gonna be an interesting experiment to see how this goes, and maybe this might be, we'll do more of this
Model
type
for
of thing.
other,
Yeah, so thank you for doing the work.
Hasn't Brett placed it in the past?
No, that was Brett, Burkholz.
Oh, that's right, that's
yeah.
right.
Brett has done this
That's
work in
right,
the past.
Yeah, Mr. Brett Sheridan has helped
Very
the township
informally.
in the past.
Oh, has
Oh,
he?
it has,
Okay,
okay.
all right.
Yes.
okay, so
No,
we have
it's
the
good.
agreement outlined and we know what it is about. Is there a motion?
I'd like to move to authorize the township manager to sign and execute the proposed buoy management services agreement as presented with the identified volunteers.
Is there support?
I will support.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, this will be, all those in favor? please say
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Farmland open space application. I did read this, and it looks like it's kind of a formality. It allows the, if I understand correctly, it allows the, state to reimburse part of the tax payment to the property owner in exchange for keeping it farmland. Is that a fair summary?
Absolutely. It also seems to be quite a ripe topic after our conversation about trails and greenways earlier in the meeting. This is something that is aligned with the township's master plan. This specific program is actually referenced in the plan as an option for preserving agricultural property in specific zones in the township.
Do we know, have we done these before? Is this the first one?
Not that I am aware of, but that's just simply probably my limited time here with the township.
I think there are some.
I don't know how old the program is, but it sounds very positive. And is it always done through reimbursement to the landowner in terms of taxes and billing, do you know?
That's my understanding of this specific program.
So they still get their full bill and then up to them to file with the state for the reimbursement?
Yeah, as referenced in the memo, just briefly, I did speak with a representative from the, see if I can get the specific office name, but the farmland, this program office with the state of Michigan, and confirm that exact question is the tax reimbursement comes from the state of Michigan. They will still pay full property taxes to Saugatuck Township.
Cool.
This is not a resolution, so is there a motion?
Sure. I will move to approve the application for a farmland agreement associated with the approximately 75 acres of property located at 2538 64th Street, as submitted by Mr. Bradley Young, and authorize the township clerk to sign the application and submit it to the Farmland Programs Office as applicable.
Is there support?
I'll support.
Supported by Marcy. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. We have a budget review and amendment request, and if Mr. Graham would give us a quick rundown on that.
Absolutely. Reiterating a few points Treasurer Helmreich referenced in his report, the township recently completed the first quarter of this fiscal year, if you would believe it or not. I know for me it seems like we just finished the budget process and we're moving to adopt that budget. But on that note, as you can see in the memo and on the slide, one of the requirements we included in the General Appropriations Act this year included tasking the township manager with periodic reporting on the status of our financial operations, and outlined in a little bit more detail than we had in the past what that is to look like. So included in the packet is some of that summary information that I am happy to go into in as much or as little detail as you would all like. At this point, I will just budget amendments specifically related to the elections department and the allocation of some unanticipated donations this year. One specific note on those, you all are aware of Mr. Art Lane, who passed away in the township, and his family and friends have generously donated several $100s to the township. So one of the amendments in here is looking to, for the township board to allocate those resources so they can be used in his memory. I believe it is page 109, if I'm remembering off the top of my head. Page 109 is the actual amendment request. The only other one I'll note, and I don't know if Clerk Bigford would like to reference anymore, but this is an election year so far, kind of like no other. And you all can note in here, one of the largest requested allocation is to the printing and publishing line in the elections department, because as you know, with the number of absentee ballots being sent out, we are quickly blowing that line item out of the water. So I'm happy to go into these in more detail, but as you can see, it does net even with the additional revenue and expenditure lines.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Graham? No questions. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the requested fiscal year 2020 through 2021 QI budget amendments as submitted.
Support?
I'll support.
Supported by Melmerick. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Item 12E, eliminating the township constable position. John, would you like to address that?
I have to add this because it became kind of apparent to me being in the office and with all the heavy traffic for voting and people asking questions about their ballots or calling in and asking. As you know, our ballot this time has the position of constable on with nobody running for it. Well, the reason for that, or the reason there's no one running for it, is Township did eliminate that position, so to speak, back in 2012, I believe, when they defunded it. The last time there was someone in that position getting compensation was prior to 2012. And apparently it was pointed out during this election season to Clerk Bigford that the township never passed a resolution eliminating it, even though I think previous administrations thought they had. And the county insisted this be on our ballot, which, again, I think it just caused confusion. Struck me as kind of superfluous, but anyway. I would like us to formally eliminate that position. I don't know if we need a resolution. I think maybe we don't at this point now because of the election. Griffin's done some, looked into this too in terms of
the surface level information I know, and the option really up to you all tonight is it is too late to remove the position, obviously, for this 2020 election cycle. However, if you all wanted a resolution prepared, I would be happy to work with legal counsel to prepare that for you, to bring it before at a future meeting that could then be adopted by the township board to remove that position, formally eliminate that position moving forward. That would take effect starting in the 2024 election cycle. So you all have some time. It is something we absolutely could start right away. It's something you all could decide to wait on. That's the direction I'll wait and see from you all. But the formal step would be, direct staff to prepare that resolution. I'll work with legal counsel to make sure it's done according to state statute and bring it back before you when it's prepared.
Well, in that case, I'd like to move that the board direct staff to spend minimal time needed with our legal counsel on preparing a resolution to officially, formally remove the position of constable from our future elections and present it to us perhaps next month.
Or we have a lot of time.
I know.
Yeah.
I just like this cleaned up. Sorry. I'm sure there's a draft in our attorney's files.
I'll support, is that You need a support?
I need
Without the comments I made, right, sorry about that.
Any further discussion?
I think it's just, we need to be professional, we need to have answers for people, and it is confusing, and it just doesn't look, it looks less than professional, so I think it's time.
Okay. For eliminating the township constable position, directing staff to prepare a resolution. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. And next up, we have an item of millage planning. Mr. Grant did a great job of preparing information about what our villages are when they expire, how much they will generate. And, Mr. Graham.
Thank you. Very excited to bring this before you all, as this is advancing another one of the Township Board's 2020 goals. This includes not only some summary information about the Township's 3 special voted villages, one for the Township cemeteries and 2 road maintenance villages, but also includes some really useful information on those specific villages, such as when they expire, the length, the rate as of this year, estimated revenue, as well as the last round of ballot language. I draw your attention specifically to the ballot language, as that legally dictates what those funds can be used for. This is also going to be a helpful tool as you all continue to consider whether or not to pursue a cemetery millage renewal in the upcoming years. That's where I'd like to draw your attention to the election calendar section. One of the anticipated outcomes in the Township Board's goal document was for staff to prepare a calendar outlining some important dates involving elections and ballot language. I'm happy to share that instead of needing to reinvent the wheel, this is actually a document that the Michigan Secretary of State's office puts out every year. Included in the packet, the 2020 elections version. The 2021 calendar is not available at this time. However, based on looking at some previous years, it is my recommendation that if the Township Board is looking to have a renewal proposal for the cemetery millage on the May ballot of 2021, that the Township Board is going to want to consider ballot language no later than the January 2021 meeting. I'm confident that staff and legal counsel can prepare that ballot language in a relatively short amount of time, so that would then give you all either this meeting today, the November or the December meeting, to direct staff to work to prepare that language and give any additional direction you all would like. I also did include the MTA's Township Millage question pamphlet again. I am aware I shared that with you all before, but I more than anything would just like to reiterate its importance. It is a dry document. I will be the first to admit that, but I think there is a significant amount of useful information for all of you, especially as this will be the first time we as a team and you all in these current capacities will be going through this process. I'm happy to answer any other questions, and if there's any additional information I can prepare for you, please let me know.
So you're looking for direction to prepare the ballot language for the January meeting?
Yes, and that can be as broad as you all would like. If there are specific changes or again, any other additional detail in that direction you would all like to include, that would also be the time for that. Again, that would be things like we're looking at changing the length of the millage or wanting to change the amount which we go for, which could or could not no longer make it a renewal. Otherwise, if you all want to give more the simple direction, I'm happy to prepare that for you.
Okay, what's the process in terms of deciding which election in 2021 we would want this on if we move in that direction?
Sure, that's a great question, John, and I do actually think the MTA's packet has a whole section on like deciding what election to put it on.
Right.
There can be specifics to think about. At this point, I'm not aware of a March 2021 election, so the first election after the expiration of the millage would be the May election, which is why that, my suggestion to you all. I do believe you all could put it on the August election for it to still be considered a renewal. But I don't believe after that, that would be the case.
And will we know by January board meeting what other elections might be held in May and August? Do you know, or?
I mean, to an extent, I think similarly to, we would be deciding what to put on a ballot in May. That's gonna be the same deadline for other organizations. At this point, I don't know the specifics, but I do believe there were other already proposed, items to be in May. But one of the things to balance, and I think it's included in here, is, you know, there's the possibility for 4 elections in a given year. 2020 is a great example of that because we had 4 elections. At a certain point, the township board can decide to put something on the ballot. If it's the only thing on the ballot, that's fine, but there are more administrative costs associated with that. So part of the reason for aiming for May, besides the fact there is going to be an election already, is that it's the first available, it's the first available slot that is going to have some other items on it. But that's similarly to what Supervisor Osmond said. If you all want to give direction to prepare language for a different election, that choice is up to you all.
No, but it helps make that decision strategically if and when we know what else might be on a May or August ballot.
Absolutely.
I know we all know that. But.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the word strategically, because I think it's a really fair point. And again, I'll defer a little bit more to the MTA's document. There's a number of different types of strategy associated with ballot proposals. Obviously, the strategy I'm speaking to is the administrative strategy to it. There is absolutely political strategy associated with ballot proposals, but it'd be inappropriate for me to discuss that with you all. But that is something you all absolutely, as elected officials, have the right to consider in that decision.
So what I'm hearing is we have the ballot language at the January meeting. We can then, in January, say, well, we don't want the May election, we want to put it on August. We'll have it will be ready and prepared.
Correct.
And hopefully we'll have wind of what else might be on either of those
Sure.
ballots, if anything.
And if I can, I think you can also look at too in regard, I'm sorry, that would have been material included in last